Welcome all of you. Today, the topic of discussion, we have come up with another very interesting topic of discussion, which is women in law, and we'll be exploring careers in legal academia and corporate law firms. So we have with us very prestigious panel members, Ms. Shreya Jha, who is working in Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas as a dispute resolution professional. Welcome, Shreya. And we have Professor Shireen Moti with us, who is currently working in Jindal Global Law School, also alumni of Global Law School. So let me quickly, since both our panel members are from Jindal Global Law School, let me quickly give a quick introduction of what is Jindal Global Law School. So in 2009, Jindal Global University began its first academic session with the establishment of India's first global law school. Jindal Global Law School is committed to providing global legal education to its students. To fulfill this objective, their curriculum and pedagogy is designed to give intensive exposure to students to domestic, international, and comparative law courses. Jindal Global Law School has also entered into collaborations, exchange programs, research partnerships, and other forms of engagement and interaction with top universities and institutions across the globe, which are working to share their invaluable intellectual resources developed over decades. There are faculty and student exchange programs and academic collaboration arrangements with leading law schools such as Harvard, Yale, NYU, Sydney, Keio, and many other reputed universities in the world. All these attributes make it Jindal Global Law School the best law school currently in India and definitely in Delhi. So let me quickly introduce our panel members. Ms. Shreya Jha, currently a senior associate with Cyril Amarchand Mangalas, one of the leading law firms in India. Ms. Shreya Jha graduated from Jindal in 2014. She joined Amarchand Mangalas in 2014 itself and have worked at a solicitor's firm in Mumbai before joining the dispute resolution team in Cyril Amarchand Mangalas in 2016. Currently, she is working as a senior associate at Cyril Amachandran Mangaldas in dispute resolution team. Professor Shireen Moti is currently assistant professor of law and director of the Office of Alumni Relations, Jindal Global Law School. Professor Shireen graduated with a BA LLB degree from Jindal Global Law School in the year 2014. In 2016, she was awarded with Chevening Scholarship to pursue her Master's in Law degree from Queen's Mary University of London. Soon after, she worked as a regulatory and corporate lawyer at Nishit Desai and Associates. In 2017, her first book, Guide to LLM Admissions and Scholarship Program, the Scholarships Abroad, was published by Universal Law Publications and LexisNexis, which has been recognized as a bestseller. In 2018, she joined Jindal Global Law. 2019, she joined Jindal Global Law School to pursue a career in academics. Currently, she is working as an assistant professor of law and director of the Office of Alumni Relations of OP Jindal Global Law School, where she teaches courses on constitutional law. Her areas of interest are international human rights law, violence against women, transnational legal feminism, and clinical legal education. Welcome, both of you. I think the introduction is not enough to describe what you have, both of you have achieved in your careers. I will request all the students to put in any questions and doubts during the session in the chat box. And I'll request Shreya and Professor Shireen to join the session. Welcome, ma'am. We are very lucky to have you on our platform today. I am sure the students will have a lot of useful information from your experiences. So just beginning the session with which will through which our students can also relate with you. How did you choose law as a career? The question is for both of you. Either of you can answer.
Shireen, you can start. I was about to say that, Shreya. So firstly, thank you, Deepshika, for that warm introduction. And we're delighted to be here, especially getting these rare opportunities to speak to young minds is something that we look forward to, because it's really important to guide students and for them to be aware and choose an awareness, especially when it comes to their careers, especially a career in law, which can be very demanding. So when I was at their age, and that's a long time ago now, I was also as confused as students are today, and I was thinking about a number of things, and law was one of the options that I thought of because of the fact that I used to always enjoy writing, reading, and discussing current affairs and global issues. But as and when I started consciously making this choice of becoming a lawyer, I thought about access to justice as an area where I could dedicate my life and scholarship to. Access to justice within the broad realm of social justice, and also particularly focused on women, is something that I spend my days and nights thinking about, writing, researching, teaching. And I am happy I made that decision, but largely speaking, because of the fact that I saw law as an instrument of social change, as something more than the commercial aspects of it, which is equally important because it's all about representation and fighting for the rights of your clients. So I saw it as an instrument for social change, and that is what compelled me to choose it as a career.
My experience was very different. I was a student who pursued science till my 12th standard. I had PCMB, and by the end of 11th standard itself, I understood that I was not very intrigued by this engineering and medical entrance exams, and I was just not someone who was very confident about cracking those exams either, to be honest. So I then thought that, what other options are there. I could have pursued English literature, honors in English literature, but law was something. Even though I have no lawyers in my family, I thought law is something very, very dynamic. Even if you study law and after investing 5 years, you realize that pure law is not something which you want to pursue. You still have multiple options available to pursue. So many of our professors who have done law now choose to specialize in anthropology, sociology. So I just realized that it's a more dynamic option, and it would help me expand my horizons and make an informed decision even after investing 5 years in law school.
So, since both of you are from Jindal, I would like to know how was your law school life? How was your experience at Jindal? Shreya?
Shreya? Yeah.
So we were the first batch of Jindal, and I think our experience was very unique compared to, I think, the subsequent batches, because we reached the campus when campus was being built. So
Okay.
we were actually a part of the whole process of literal campus building. And we were the ones who started all these societies in law school: DebSoc, Mood Society, all the arts and culture, sports fest. Like, we were the ones to even think how can we collaborate with other people to do these things on campus. So it was very vibrant. We didn't have anyone to handhold us, but we had the great opportunity to have a very good professor lot with us. They were tremendous. I think the exposure that we got because of them was extremely different. And today, even like, I work in a law firm, and there are people from all law schools. And when we all have conversations, they all say that Jindal sounds so different than any other law school, because we truly had that global experience. Because our professors went to different law schools abroad, and they came back and brought that ethic with them, and they tried to imbibe that in us. They were very open. They wanted to know what is happening. It was not just, oh, do your course reading, then give the exam and it's over. It was much more. The relationships that we developed were much deeper in that sense.
Professor Shri, how would
Yes.
you describe your experience?
So I have had a very similar experience to what Shreya has just described. And if I had to sum it up in one word, that what the journey was like within law school, it was very transformative. So we went as very naive teenagers in our late teens. And when we came out, we were truly young adults with a mind of our own and a mindset which asked questions, which questioned the world around us and wanted to make a dent in whichever field we chose after law school. So I think the testimony of a good education is that it makes you question, it makes you think, it makes you analytical, and that is something I saw that change in me as I entered Jindal Global Law School, and then I sort of graduated from Jindal. Within the campus, of course, our experience was unique, and we took a lot of initiatives. I mean, 10 years down the line, these societies that Shreya, a lot of our friends had started continue. So it is a part of our legacy. I take pride in starting the Clinical Legal Aid Society on campus. I know Shreya was a big part of the Mooting Society. So we take pride in being the first movers in that sense in those societies, and also equally being very rigorous with our academics, because we got that golden opportunity of learning from great minds. Like, classroom was not boring. It was, we used to look forward to going to classes. Research, many of us were from science backgrounds, and sometimes there's a myth, that you need to be from an arts background to do well in law school. While that might help in the help you quickly understand what is required, but so after the first year, you're on track with everybody else. And of course, there's no difference. Even if you start preparing and working in the first year, you would be at par with anybody who's done an arts subject or a commerce subject, or so on and so forth. But it was a complete shift in our thinking, because we started questioning, and law has a lot to do with society. So apart from the faculty, the classroom experience, the friendships that we have built is something that has taken us through hard times after law school as well. And your network absolutely remains the same, because in those 5 years, you'll expand it, but you will keep going back to your law school friends, because they have seen you in a way that nobody else has. And you feel it's a relatable quality, that you're from the same institution, you have had similar experiences, and there's a lot of common ground there. Apart from that, what Jindal Global Law School really made us think is, and I always say this, that it made us dream. It made us dream a little bigger, to get out of our comfort zones and try different things, and actually gave tangible opportunities for us to figure out what our true passion is, what lies ahead. Because many a times there's a very straight jacketed thinking that, I'll join law school and then I'll do this. But, many of my colleagues, and including me, we changed our perceptions when we were in law school, that law is not a very it's not something which is rigid. You can use your legal knowledge in varied fields when you go forward, and actually that is something that is valued within the industry as well.
Okay, thank you for the answers. Since Jindal Global Law School is a residential university, and you guys stayed on campus like most national universities, so what do you think was the benefit of that, and what activities did you pursue in law school individually? As you said that you were part of the legal aid committee and legal aid institution, and Shreya was a part of Mooting. Apart from that, what activities did you pursue while in law school? Shireen, starting with you.
Okay, so there was a lot in those 5 years. So of course I was a part of, like any typical law student, you are enthusiastic in the first year, join everything, you just sign up for everything, you have a major FOMO going on. I mean, what are they doing in that society? I should be a part of that. I should be a part of that. So you sign up to everything. And by second or third year, you realize, okay, this is where my passion lies, and this is what I can sanely balance with my academic pursuits, because academics is key and everything else it's the center, and everything works around it. So even I was a part of the Mooting Society. I was part of the Legal Aid Clinic. We did a lot of work on women rights in the women's clinic. But my focus and what truly made me passionate about the law was working in the clinic, working with marginalized communities. So we ran a good governance and citizen participation program in about 350 villages of Haryana, with in collaboration with local NGOs, Navjyoti India Foundation, SM Sehgal Foundation, and others. And what we really did is we prepared awareness materials, legal literacy materials. We conducted camps, and we also connected with government officials and got tangible results for the rural communities. So that was the starting point of my sort of engagement with access to justice and rural communities and working on issues of domestic violence, right to information, and right to education. So that is the kind of experience you can get only when you have dedicated faculty members, you have the necessary infrastructure, and also you have that support to go forward in the villages and do all of this, especially in a state like Haryana. So that was something that I was very focused on. I was the president of the Legal Aid Society. I founded it for 5 years, and we actually increased the student strength by a remarkable number. We started with 5 students, and then we had about 350 volunteers by the end of it. So that is a key takeaway from my law school experience. Apart from that, of course, cultural activities, going for these fests and being a part of conferences and all of that. And I think one should have a holistic experience when it comes to law school. It's not going to simply help you to go to classes and score great in exams. That is something that you have to do. But apart from that, actually what you really learn, which helps you later on in your career, is people skills, trying to communicate effectively, trying to work with a team of people, understanding and developing skills as you go forward, because you can't have all the skills and then go forward and do a project. You have to develop as and when you are engaging with those concepts and those sort of issues. So that has been my experience. Yes.
Shreya?
I was very interested in mooting because it sort of seemed like doing puzzles. And when we started, we were just starting with our first moots. First, we did state level moots. Then we started with national level and then international level. So I was mostly devoting my time to mooting society. Either I was doing the moots or I was coaching the team. And apart from that, I worked with my professors. So in Jindal, if you go with certain scholarship, if you are admitted with certain scholarship, you can sort of volunteer with professors to help them with their center. And they choose people who they want to work with. So one of my professors, he was working on a book at that time, and he wanted volunteers to do research work for him. So I worked with him for some research on his book. And similarly, a lot of centers were there. You could approach them if you wanted to work for a particular project, and they would then assign the work to you. So I think with time, I just sort of focused on academics and my mooting, because mooting was something that few of us wanted to inculcate that thing in our law school, right? Because Jindal was not known at that time, and mooting circuit is something, if you perform well over there, you sort of get recognition in the market. And in the moot competitions, you go and these partners from different law firms come, distinguished people are coming, judges are coming. So you want to make that mark. So it was something which occupied a lot of my time. And apart from that, yeah, I think the benefit of staying on at campus is not just that you can devote time to these societies. I think two very big takeaways of residential campus is access to library. So that access, where you are not just studying what you're required to study, but if you're interested, you can just go sit in your reading room, take a book from library, and it depends on how willing you are to get the knowledge. Jindal can only provide you the infrastructure. After that, it's on you how much you're using it, right? And Jindal had the best infrastructure in that sense. We had 24/7 access to the library. So that was something I really enjoyed, because in the evening a lot of your time would go in these extracurricular activities, but I could, if I wanted peace and quiet, I could sit in my library and study or finish my assignments. And other thing was that you had your peers all the time to help you out. If you're really struggling with some subject, something, people would actually take the time out to sit with you and help you out. So that is the sort of culture Jindal inculcates. It's not highly competitive. It's not like people don't want to help each other. It was a very collaborative sort of an environment where people would used to take classes to help out their batchmates in the evening to help them prepare for exams. So that was the sort of environment that could happen only if you're on campus 24/7.
Right, right. I think it's a huge benefit, and the circle that you form in your, I
Correct,
personally feel the circle that you form in your law school, as Professor Shireen also said, it stays with you for a very long
correct.
time. You guys must be having the same circle till now.
Yeah,
So the closest of your friends, I think, are from law school itself. So coming to your professional careers, both of you went into a very different dynamic. Shreya went for corporate practice, and Shireen went for her LLM. So coming to Shreya, you are practicing dispute resolution with Sairil Ramachan and Mangal Das, which is a leading law firm. You are a senior associate. So both of you, I personally feel both of you are huge successes when I see in as women in law, women performing well in law. Both of you are huge successes. So starting with Shreya, can you quickly explain what is dispute resolution?
yeah. So the practice that involves mostly litigation work, that is court facing work, and arbitration related work, and any advisory that is related to a potential litigation or a dispute, any future dispute, also forms part of dispute resolution teams. And now basically, because courts usually take a lot of time to resolve matters, big companies, when they want quick fixation of the disputes that can arise in future, they are preferring to go for arbitrations. And also because arbitrations are more transnational, they want, if they are entering into a contract with a company based internationally, it's much more feasible for the international party also to get into a arbitration clause with the Indian company, because the process of arbitration is more neutral than an international company having to learn about the court procedure and process of India generally, which also varies drastically in different states. So
Right.
it's a very jurisdictional specific thing.
Okay. And what are the pros and cons of being a dispute resolution professional? What do you find is a challenge being a dispute resolution lawyer?
I don't think there's any challenge. I think
Great.
it's a very it's an if someone is interested in learning different kinds of subject matter, because law, yes, in dispute resolution you are dealing with very similar laws like arbitration related law or civil procedure code, etc., etc. But your factual scenario is so drastically different in every case. It's across various different specializations. For example, if you work on a construction contract, you're basically learning engineering. You're understanding how was that thing built, which is under dispute, right? Because unless you understand the facts, you're not going to understand the legal issue itself. So I think there has to be an inclination to be okay with learning various kinds of fields, at least superficially. No one is saying that you have to understand it thoroughly, but there has to be an inclination to learn new things and experience new things. And in disputes, I think, okay, one challenge that people do face sometimes is there's a lot of running around to do, because there are so many parties which are, not in your control. So a lot of times you have to cater to judges want briefs in a certain way. You have to prepare it for them, even though it takes you hours to do it, does not matter. If they prefer in a certain way, you have to provide it to them. Senior counsels, you have to brief them, you have to present the case to them in the way which is most comfortable to them. So every day you're working with new people and you have to cater to them in that way. So sometimes, just preparing briefs takes you hours, and sometimes you're like, oh my god, I've been working for 6-7 years and still I'm doing this. But doesn't matter, it's a part of the practice. You have to take it in like stride.
And Professor Shireen, coming to you, what prompted you to choose academics as a career in law?
So I was actually always interested in becoming an academic, and that is why I pursued my LLM. But it took me a while to make this choice because I wanted to, as I said, I wanted to explore a few things. I had a few things in mind before I wanted to shift to academia. But I'm glad I made the choice because it is exactly how I'd imagined it would be, even better, because I get to do I mean, it's satisfactory, of course, but I enjoy the work a lot. So it's a mix of teaching, research, administrative work, and I enjoy all the three in equal parts. More so research because I'm a scholar at heart, so I like to look at issues from a different perspective and try and find out solutions to it. Initially, when I was thinking about what to do after law and while in law school, I looked at a number of options, and of course, I did corporate and regulatory work as well. And I have huge respect for people who do that kind of work, but it was not something that resonated with what I thought of doing for the next 30, 40 years of my life. So I quickly changed gears and I understood that, academia is where my heart lies, and it is satisfactory. I get to do, I see it as a part of nation building, that I get to speak to young minds and impart my knowledge. And most importantly, not only am I teaching the law, but I'm also contributing to the knowledge building of the law itself by way of my research. Another thing is that I always say to my students who are thinking of a career in academics is that you should always have some kind of industry experience. So you do your LLMs, you do your PhDs, you have some industry experience and come back to teaching, because of the fact that, when you are in that classroom, your students are looking at the world through your eyes. So to give them that perspective, to bridge that gap between theory and practice, you have to make your lectures very insightful. So of course, theory is important and only then you can apply it to a real problem. But it's also important to give those insights, and that comes only through practice. As Shreya said, they are, I mean, she's been working so diligently on arbitration and dispute resolution for 6-7 years, and still it takes that rigor to look at that contract, understand it, and that is what law is. I mean, it is all about perseverance and hard work. I don't think it is about intelligence as much as it is about consistency, hard work, and perseverance. So you should be able to be like Shreya and look at that contract for the 100th time with the same enthusiasm. So yeah, I mean, and that too with that's what I do in constitutional law, even though there is a set syllabus and this is what we are supposed to do. But I try to bring my own insights to constitutional law and leave my students with that impression that, you have to look at it from a larger perspective. You have to develop those analytical research writing skills, which are important for lawyers in any field they choose after law school. So I'm glad I made that decision, and really my training in Jindal actually prepared me to be in academics. So it was something that was always there in my heart, but it's just that I explored a bit before I chose to become an academic.
So you pursued your LLM from Queen's Mary London, and you were awarded a scholarship for that. So can you enlighten us with respect to that? How did you decide to do your LLM, and how did you go about it?
Definitely. So LLM is something, so because our faculty, all of them were from Oxford, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, they had these fancy LLM degrees. So we always had that in our, I mean, many of my colleagues had that in their heart that we will also someday go and do an LLM from abroad. So that was the first interest that came about. But then for practical reasons, because I thought that, okay, I want to join academics at some point, so I need to have an LLM, because without LLM, you can't enter teaching in India, right? So you need an LLM to become a law professor, to become a legal academic. So that was the practicality of it. And also because I wanted, by the time I was clear that this is my chosen area of law, and I wanted to develop some kind of expertise in that area, and also experience the international higher education space. So that is how I decided that I would like to apply for the LLM program abroad. I was very lucky with the offers. So I applied very late in the application cycle and I couldn't apply to many top universities. I did get offers from Columbia, New York University School of Law, UC Berkeley, UC Davis, UPenn, Cornell, Chicago Law School. I was thinking about the US, but but Chevening is for UK. So when I got this fully funded scholarship, I decided I'll go to the UK, and then a number of applications were open. So I applied to Queen Mary and I got in. So the idea is Queen Mary is #1 for arbitration in the world, and I actually went and pursued a mixture of arbitration and international human rights law courses at Queen Mary, and that was a perfect blend for me because I wanted to learn from legal academics who are at the top of the field in the world. The top arbitration legal academics teach at Queen Mary, and at the same time, I got to get a flavor of international human rights law and how that is taught in international universities. What was great about my experience is that, as she had pointed earlier in her answer, that our faculty was from abroad, and therefore they brought that rigor with them. So when I went there, as compared to other Indian students, I did not feel any difference. So my training in general really prepared me for that LLM because the research, academic rigor, and standards were the same, which was quite refreshing and made it quite comfortable for me. But other Indian students I saw were struggling a lot. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Coming to Shreya, so there is a general perception among students and who have already gone to law school who are still trying to pursue law in various universities, that it is very tough for non-NLU grads to bag, good law firm jobs or in general jobs that are there available in the market. So will you, since both of you are from non-NLU background, will you like to throw some light on that? How is the market responding to non-NLU students right now?
So I think Jindal has done tremendously well in that sense. Why? Because we had a 0 day when we were in our 4th year. We were the first batch. And our professors really went out on a limb to get recruiters to come to our college because these law firms did not know Jindal per se. So, but once they came, and it's an interesting story because the first firm that came at that time to our college was Amarchand Mangaldas. It was United Amarchand at that time. And it hired 4 people. And Shireen was also one of them. And 4 of us got hired. And after that, Khaitan, Luthra, a lot of people got placed at AZB also. So people did get placed in our batch, but not too many at the same time. But also the difference was our batch was not too inclined to join law firms in the beginning. Our batch was very dynamic in that sense. They wanted to pursue very different things, which is a difference that I see in NLUs versus Jindal. I don't know about other private universities, but in Jindal, at least you are shown that there are other options available for you as a lawyer to pursue, and they are as lucrative as joining a law firm. It's about your interest. It's also about the kind of background you come from. So for me, for financial stability was something that I was very keen on. So a law firm job sort of made me feel that, if I spend 6-7 years in a law firm, I will be in a very financially stable position 7 years down the line. And that was one of the reasons why I chose to join a law firm. But my heart always lied with practice. I always interned with Supreme Court lawyers, Bombay High Court lawyers. That's what I was interested in. And Jindal gave you that opportunity to explore. But I feel after our batch joined Amarchand, after that, like even last year, some 17 kids were recruited from Jindal. So they just went and took top 17 kids.
Right.
So I think it's about new universities, of course, take a little bit of time because they are still building their reputation. But what Jindal has achieved in 10 years, I think it's tremendous. Because but secondly, having said that, I also feel it's about what you do in law school. A law school name can only get you an interview, but how you convert that interview, how you retain that job is all on you. A law school cannot provide everything to you in a platter. So I feel Jindal will, throughout 4 years, it will help you get internships. It's on you to go and convert those internships. It's on you to be active enough to go and perform. Like our batch, we had that feeling that, people think that we are just spoiled brats, but we have to prove ourselves that like people are here. Like we have to do justice to what we are being taught in law school. It was not a rich kids law school, and we wanted to break that notion, and I think that happened to a great extent in
Of
last
course,
10 years.
now I feel not only with you know well background or people who are from affluent
Correct.
background, but people who are from humble background as well look up to Jindal as a very good law school,
Correct.
because the students and the alumni and the the background is it has gained a very good reputation right now. Now, coming to not only from Jindal, but do you see when you see new recruits from in your law firm, do you feel that there is a variety of students from all law school, or do you see that the maximum number of students are from NLUs itself?
Now, in Bombay, you would see a lot of students from GLC, from Praveen Gandhi, from ILS Pune, Symbiosis. I think it's about how you have used your internships and what networks you formed and how well you've performed in the 4 or 5 internships that you got the opportunity to do. It
Okay.
really depends on that.
So,
And that's why it's extremely important to build network. Like you have to be a good lawyer, but you have to be a good people's person. Like people should remember you.
right. So it is safe to say that it doesn't matter which law school you go to, but
Correct.
it matters what you do in law
Correct.
school,
I
how
would
you use.
completely agree. I would completely agree.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. Coming to Professor Shireen, I would just like to discuss, can you quickly throw some light on what is your teaching methodology? What is a class flow that you use for students to be interested in the lectures? How do you make the class interesting?
So the positive thing about my subject is that students are already interested because constitution law
Constitution.
is
Right.
so I don't have to work hard on the interest. What I need to work hard on is to keep the aggression levels down in my class. Like people really get
Of course.
passionate about their
Of
sides.
course.
So that is what I need to work with. So it's more about the class management. But truly speaking, because I am passionate about constitutional law, and that's what my students also feel, and I would like to believe that that's why I do that day in and day out. And so the students also, that those energies sort of resonate, and we have a very like lively class. Of course, online is now very different because we can't have such debates, but actually speaking, the methodology that I follow is a combination of not only the theoretical syllabus bound case laws and material that is there in your UGC mandated course manuals, but also actively talking about what is happening in the country. I always say that the best source of understanding constitutional law is to read the morning newspapers, because you'll get at least 5 or 6 items on constitutional law every day. And if a student or anybody who's interested in the area starts reading the newspaper, they'll develop the understanding of those issues. Of course, there is a lot of theory behind it, but what I try to leave my students with at the end of my lectures is to be able to understand what's happening in the country and to form their own opinions. That is always my objective. So my classes are a combination of not only these theoretical aspects, which are absolutely important to put current events in context, case laws, of course, leading case laws, examples, as well as lively debates and discussions on contemporary topics and what is happening in the country. Really, I love to hear from my students. They're smarter than you think. It's just that with the right direction, they can really develop an independent mind of their own on issues that are grappling the country at any given point, and especially in these times. Yes.
Um, so I can see that you wrote a book while you were very young. How did you get inspired? Because just this is not something which is there, which is a very popular choice among young graduates. So you wrote a book while you were very young. I think you're still very young, but just
Thank you.
out of just out of law school, went ahead and wrote a book. How did you get inspired to do that?
Well, that's the luxury of youth, that you don't think too much, you just do
Right.
it. And then when the consequences come, then you think, Acha, mujhe ye karna chahiye tha, mujhe wo karna chahiye tha. You don't think that much in your 20s. And that's exactly what happened to me. When I was applying for the LLM programs, I thought there's a lot of lack of information and there's no consolidated information in one place, especially from the perspective of Indian law students, because we are not exposed to the system of writing statement of purposes, essays to gain admissions abroad. And the best of us, come down to our knees when we are supposed to write an essay on ourselves, because we have never done it in high school, we have not done it in graduation. So how can we now suddenly think about who we are and what we want to do and why are we pursuing this degree? So I understood that this is a very challenging exercise, and many students, especially non-NLUs, would not even think of going abroad because the process itself is so challenging. And more so the funding, they are not aware of the funding opportunities. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do my LLM if I did not have the requisite funding, not because of course our families can afford it at that age, but because we also want to start our independent lives, we want an independent career, and we don't want to be bound by that student loan or loans from our families, or family supporting our education henceforth, because we really want to make independent choices. We want to go in that career without any burden on our shoulders. And especially with law, because by the time you graduate from your law degree, which is a 5-year degree, you are already about 20 to 23, and you don't want to spend a single day where you're not as independent, because you have an independent mind already, but you're not financially independent. Then what is the point? So with that perspective, there was no book on this topic, and I was actually thinking, there's no book on this topic. I mean, such an obvious topic to write on. And second, non-NLUs, because I was thinking of the fact that we got a privileged education, in the sense we got exposure to the best faculty members, and we did well in law school, and today we are finding it tough to write this SOP. And not only me, everyone around me was applying from my law school was facing similar issues. So then I decided, let me break down this entire process into a book form, so that somebody who refers to it saves about 4 to 6 months of their time, and does not really have to spend so much time looking and answering those questions that have already been answered by people who have already done the LLM. And therefore, there was a whole breakdown, and Universal and LexisNexis were kind enough to give me my first contract. And since then, I've entered the field of publishing, and I'm enjoying that. So that was really the seed of that book, that what about the non-NLUs, what about people who are not even dreaming of this because the process seems too challenging, and because there's no book on this topic. And in fact, even today there's no second book on this topic. And I've seen over the years, now it's been about 4 or 5 years since it got published. It has sold about 3,000 plus copies, and I get emails invariably in every admission cycle. I get 30-40 emails from students saying that your book helped us in something, and that is very gratifying.
Thank you so much. Um, Coming to Shreya, how has been your experience with Sairil Amarchandran Mangaldas till now? You have been working for a considerable amount of time. So, how will you explain or describe your experience?
It's been a great experience. I started my career with Amarchand, and then in between, I went to another solicitor's firm, and then I came back to CAM. It's a very great learning curve. I feel that the kind of discipline that you learn in a law firm environment is something that is going to help you throughout your life, whether you choose to stay at the law firm or go and do pursue something else. The fact that you're answerable, uh, you have been given a work, you have to own that work, and you are the one responsible for execution of that work. That whole the fact that you come out of college and now you're an adult, that whole adulting process in a law firm is in a very structured manner, and I feel you get that time to learn and grow and perform. And there are constant review cycles. So your seniors sit down with you and tell you what you're doing well, what are the areas you need to work on. So I feel you are getting constant feedback, so you know what are the areas you can improve. So it's not like you are unaware of yourself. You get to think a lot about the kind of lawyer you want to become, the kind of things you want to focus on. So I feel that in that way the experience at CAM was brilliant. It's also one of the leading law firms, so the kind of work that we did was high quality work. And so in that those terms also, working on very high stake matters require you to really push yourself. You can, there are very, of course as juniors you can make mistakes and your seniors protect you, but still the as you keep becoming senior in a law firm space, the opportunity to make mistakes reduces drastically, so you have to perform at your best day after day. And I feel then you just sort of become that person who wants to give your best on a regular basis.
Right. So being at a leading law firm, I think it gives you the benefit of, because the quality of work there is
Correct.
the best in India, right? So basically, the people who are involved in delivering that work obviously need to be the best to maintain that
Correct.
reputation.
Correct.
So yeah, thank you for the answer, Professor Shireen. How has your experience been at Jindal as a professor?
It's been a very fulfilling experience because of the fact that I exactly do what I want to do. So of course, teaching is very fulfilling because I get to interact with young minds on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Research, of course, transnational feminism, violence against women, international human rights law, clinical legal education, all of those are my interest areas, and I publish actively in those areas. And administratively speaking, I get to connect with stalwarts like Shreya through the alumni office, and that keeps me motivated that I'm also contributing to institutional development. But most importantly, what is great about Jindal as a workplace, that we rank very high on employer, I mean, the kind of employers Jindal are. I framed it incorrectly. So it means that we rank as an institution, we rank very high on employer, good place to work at. I'm not getting that up. A good place to work at. And QS World Rankings is where we broke in, and that ranked us at a very nice level, at a very nice score. And that I'm testimony of that fact because of the fact that Jindal gives you a lot of independence as academics. So you are truly independent in terms of your ideas, views, the kind of projects you want to do, and that independence is very liberating, and you won't find it in very many institutions in India or even abroad. So that is why their experience has been good. I've been in Jindal for now about 2.5 years, and I look forward to a long journey with OP Jindal Global University because of the opportunities that it provides not only its students but faculty as well. So yes, it's been a good experience so far.
Thank you for the answer, Professor Shireen. So I'll like to divert the discussion to women in law, particularly. Professor Shireen, would you like to throw some light on if you had any women lawyers as inspiration while you were pursuing law or you were thinking to pursue law? Did you have, somebody to look up to as women lawyers in India?
So I would say that, when you are pursuing your interests and developing a career, not just women in law, women otherwise, men, other professionals, everyone seems there will be an inspiration irrespective of their gender. And it's good to find inspiration because looking at that person, what happens is that, it is not impossible. It can be done with incredible amounts of hard work and perseverance and, consistency. So I've not only been inspired by women lawyers, but men who are lawyers and also people who are from other fields, because excellency is something that is infectious. If you see somebody who's excellent in their work, what happens is that you also try to put an extra amount of hard work in your work because you want to be seen as that person who brings excellency to everything that he or she does. Particularly speaking, if you look at women in law, I think what happens invariably is that when you are doing internships, you come across female partners at law firms, you come across females in doing NGO work, you come across female professors. But slowly and steadily, what happens is, and I've come to realize that if we make our choices independent of our gender, like gender should not become a barrier in our choices, we do much better. So if I tomorrow I have a project in front of me or some work is given to me and I forget the fact that I'm a female and whether I should pursue it, I have better chances at succeeding. Because what happens is that society imposes a lot of barriers on us already, and we create an extra layer of barriers. So that sort of pushes us away from success. But slowly and steadily, it's a hard process. We should stop putting barriers on ourselves at least. We can't do anything about the society. It will take time for them to change, and it has changed considerably. So we should stop thinking of ourselves as women lawyers, because we never say male lawyers or male judges. It's always female judges. It's a rare thing. I know it's a rare thing, and it will take time for the representation to increase. But we ourselves should just identify as lawyers as compared to women or men lawyers. Of course, it's about representation. It's about the number of women that are in the workforce. But women in general inspire me tremendously, and men as well. Whoever is excellent, excellence inspires me more than the gender of that person. So I think we should all aim at excellence, and that is something that really gets us to success.
Thank you so much. Shreya, do you think things have changed professionally for women now versus how it was 20 years ago? How women, number of women doing law, pursuing law, or practicing law now has considerably increased compared to 20 years ago, or when you were starting to, you started pursuing law. Did you find that in your batch the strength was 50-50 for the men women ratio was 50-50, or how was it then?
I think comparing to 20 years ago, definitely things have changed drastically. I think corporate centers are to be congratulated on that, because they do strive to consciously achieve that 50-50 mark. Law firms are a very neutral environment in terms of gender. You are not going to face discrimination in terms of promotion or salary just because you're a woman. Of course, it's a learning thing. Law firms are also learning, right? Like maternity leave, etc., etc. All of those things are gradually changing. But I really feel that law firms are a very neutral environment. In terms, it gives you equal opportunity to grow. In terms of practice of law, I would say it's still far behind than what it should have been, and I guess that is a ripple effect of women not pursuing law 20-25 years ago, and therefore today you see there are not as many women senior counsels as men, of course. But I don't think that's a reflection on women. I think it's a numbers thing, and more women join law school, that number will gradually increase in another 10 years. I think our batch in general was mostly 50-50. There were as many girl students as guy students. I didn't think that we had that gender disparity per se. I also, even today, I feel that in law, people, you will not be forced to make a decision because you're from one particular gender. Of course, your struggle can be a little more than men, not taking away from that struggle at all. Like if today I decide to practice and a man decides to practice litigation, then of course I might have to practice. Before I become successful, I might have to put in 10 years, and that man will might have to only put in 5 years. But that is what it is. You cannot shy away from that perseverance because you're from a particular gender. And only when we don't shy away from it will things change. We have to make that decision, even if it's a little more tougher than for guys out there.
Right. Thank you so much. With a parting message, what thoughts will you like to leave our students with? What kind of what would you like to say to our students before we open the platform for questions?
Shireen, you want to start?
Sure. So what I would like to tell students is that you don't have to take all decisions at one. I mean, you have to rest your mind also and really dig deep and find out what it is that you really want to do with your life and career. See, careers are not built overnight. Even if you start after graduation, it will take you 20 years to make a mark, be it any career. So you have to live in that awareness that it is not instant sort of success that is going to come to you, especially in competitive fields like law. Uh, More so if you're a woman, because of the fact that there are some societal challenges that come with age, but you don't have to make that a barrier. You have to play through your strengths. And many women have done it. As Shreya rightly said, 50% of partners in law firms are women. And people are realizing increasingly, even in academia, that you need to give the right kind of support to women to keep performing at the same level as men, because they have additional responsibilities as well. And that is great for us. But still, representation is a sort of low even in academics. You will see a lot of crowding in the junior faculty positions, but when it comes to senior faculty, male are dominant, and that is a reality we have to live with, and it might change in the next few decades. But what I'm trying to tell, this coming back to this, I deviated a bit. Coming back to what students should do. Firstly, if you are at a stage where you're deciding your career, be true to yourself that these are my interest areas. If you do not want to do engineering, don't do engineering. It is not going to be the end of the world. If you want to do the arts and pursue something, even like social sciences, not even law, it's something else, you should do that. Because if you are interested, your chances of excelling are good, and there'll always be job opportunities around it. But make that choice of having an interest in a particular field based on three things. Firstly, thoroughly research what is happening in that field and whether those things are something that you see yourself possibly doing in the next 5 or 10 years. Second, speak to people in the area. And third, speak to your friends and family. But ultimately, try and take a decision based on what you feel from within. And what I'll tell you, whatever decision you take, later on you can change it, because you are going to gain as much exposure from your internships, from your education, and then you can slowly and steadily steer in the direction that you are meant to. But most importantly, live in the awareness that it's not going to happen overnight. Whichever field you choose, even if you are most passionate about it, when you're doing it for the 100th time, boredom will kick in. That is something that will happen, even if you love what you do. So hard work, perseverance never goes waste. You need to choose correctly, choose what is your gift at the end of the day, and only then will you excel in that area with incredible amounts of hard work. It won't happen overnight. So make that choice and awareness, and not just because somebody is doing it, so I'm supposed to do it. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. You do not have to achieve everything in the next 1 or 2 years. To give yourself time, you have to make those choices, you have to learn from your mistakes, and then only do your course correction, and then find out, okay, this is what I truly want to do. So yes, that would be my advice.
Shreya, will you like
Yeah.
to say something?
I would say that don't reverse engineer your choices. Don't think that law gives you a certain kind of job which pays you a certain kind of money. Life is not suits. It's not going to work like that. And don't make your decisions based on that.
Interestingly, a lot of students now start, they make their decision based on suits only. So
Yeah, that's
good that
why
you said that.
it's very important. Don't reverse engineer it, because like Shireen said, boredom will kick in. Whatever you do, law is a long-term game. If you are doing law, your chances of succeeding really depends on the number of years you're putting into it. It's not you're not going to be a star who's just going to go in the legal field and shine bright and just like dazzle everyone. It's not going to happen. And it is a game of years. The number of years you put in, you will get the benefit of it. All the senior counsels that I talk to, I try to inspire myself, they all say, Shreya, perseverance. You have to just keep doing whatever you're doing on a daily basis, do not get demotivated. Keep yourself motivated. So, and I also think that but just by talking about these few law firms, we take away from lot of good law firms which are mid-sized, which are specialized, and which are doing terrific work. Because see, there are only 5 or 6 big law firms, right? And everyone cannot get a job there. And I know brilliant people who have chosen to go to a mid-sized firm over a top-tier firm because they wanted work-life balance. They wanted to do a certain kind of work for a certain number of hours. So it comes down to all of those choices. You don't have to think that, oh my god, if I don't get recruited to a law firm, my career as a lawyer is over. It's not. And you can always keep moving from a mid-size to a big law firm. You don't have to be like, oh, if this college does not give me guarantee that I'm going to get placed, I'm not going to that law school itself. You have to think about the kind of education you're getting. The idea is to broaden your horizons. The idea is to learn, grow, become the human being you want to become. Job, money, all of this will happen. And you'll be surprised after 10 years of working, you'll be like, okay, I don't want so much money also, as long as I have peace of mind.
Of course. So I just want to quickly add something to what Shreya said. See, law is a very dynamic field. If you take the degree of law, okay, so it's valued not only as a legal professional. What would happen is that a number of opportunities open up for you. When people also in law school, we always thought of this lawyer in a robe going and practicing in front of the court. But that is a very traditional mindset. That might be something that interests many of the law students, but there are other like Shreya, and that's actually the that's the ultimate power that you have for the judge, where you are arguing the law. All of that boils down to that appearance in court, and that's great if somebody gets motivated to do that. But there are a number of other opportunities and they are financially lucrative as well as satisfying.
Correct.
And many of the students are not aware of these opportunities.
Correct.
So not only can you become a senior counsel, you can join law firms, you can join big corporate houses like EY, PwC, all these consultancy firms, groups where you have these in-house counsel roles. So you are a part of the legal team of these companies. They have an in-house legal team, and also they have external legal expertise that they usually refer to. You can write so many competitive examinations that are only open to lawyers, or they prefer lawyers to be a part of their that service. So army, judiciary, civil services. These are good opportunities for lawyers.
SEBI and RBI.
SEBI and RBI, CCI. You have so many specialized, these agencies that are coming up. Then you have lawyers in so all of this, and then international forums. So international organization, Amnesty, RHW, Human Rights Watch, UN. There's so many, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you have the Obama Foundation. They all prefer lawyers because we come with a certain expertise in writing, research, and communication, which is preferred by all of them because they ultimately write reports and research. And then you have think tanks, you have Vidhi Legal Research and Policy, which is doing remarkably well. You have so many other centers, Center for Policy Research. You can do judicial clerkships. You can do so many things with the degree in law. You have a really good scope when it comes to career opportunities. So somebody who does well in law school will definitely land up with a good job after law school because there's so many opportunities. They can easily support themselves and they're financially lucrative. So it's not only about practice or law firm or academia. You have so many other opportunities, and especially so many people write these competitive exams and get through government services, which are very respectable as well as something that forms a part of a promising career. So students should also research on those aspects and not only think about this mundane traditional role of a lawyer, which is the most important, but also there are other opportunities, especially first generation lawyers like us. I mean, we really had to, there's a different layer. So women, first generation lawyers, there are multiple layers to everybody's struggle. But, the idea is that you need to make those choices, but you can make those choices only if you are aware. So the first point is to be as aware as you can.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thank you
like
so much.
very small thing, like for example, when you're doing college research, when you're talking to peers, talk about the kind of ragging that happens in universities. Okay, some colleges are infamous for doing bad ragging of juniors. In we were lucky, we were the first batch, but also in 5 years that we were in law school, we never heard of ragging. And then when I heard stories that my friends who were pursuing medicine had to go through, I was shocked. So the only consideration cannot be what jobs do I get. You have to think of the environment. You have to spend 5 years in that place, and 5 most crucial years. These years will make you the person you're going to eventually be. You have to focus on the right things. When you do your research, do not just think about what opportunities will I have, because once you excel, you will find your place in the world, and that is eventually going to happen, even if you're 2 years behind than maybe someone from NLS Bangalore. So it's okay, it's not a race. You will get there, but do your research holistically. Do not make choices based on one or two considerations, is like my humble request.
Yes, and just this last point, because this is something that many students come up with, and you had raised it in your discussion, Deepshika, that non-NLUs versus NLUs. This is like a
Yes, this
battle of
is
the
such.
battle. I
I
mean,
know this is because I've been actively involved with these young students. I feel there is a lot of stigma with respect to, if I don't get in an LU, I'll just switch to, I'll do economics honors, I'll go to DU. I'll rather not do it in any other university, just an NLU. So there's a lot of stigma. I just want you guys to clear that up, and it's say that even if you go to a non NLU university, non NLU college for your graduation, doesn't matter. It matters what you do in law school,
Correct.
what you do
correct.
after your graduation when you get your degree. So I've been trying to, in my capacity, I've been trying to influence students with respect to that. Do not just give up hope when you don't
Correct.
get into an NLU or a top student. There are students who just who don't even want to go to like a lower rank NLU. They want top 5, top 6. मेरे को उसी में जाना है. So there's a lot of
And that is just statistically impossible, right?
impossible, right?
That's why I also say, for top law firms, life is not over if you don't work at a top tier firm. बहुत
Right.
option hai, and you just have to explore. You have to have an open mind, be a thinking rational person, pursue your interests. It will happen. 20s is not your time to settle and earn a lot of money. उसके बाद क्या करोगे?
Right.
So
Right.
keep exploring.
Right.
Let be lawyers mature like wine. So only
Yeah,
in the years of our life we
exactly.
have that comfort. Yeah.
Just keep, if you like law, if you like the idea of law, do not give up because you didn't get into top national law school. That's not the end of it. Go
Exactly.
to the law school that you think by your research. Even ILS is such a brilliant law school. People from ILS do so well. And I feel it's just about how good you do at a law school. You have to make the best of the opportunity that is provided to you. So you cannot really take away कि ओ इस कॉलेज में ही नहीं हुआ तो करेंगे ही नहीं, वो ऑप्शन ही नहीं है.
See, I can understand the insecurity that students go through because of the fact that in some way a brand, when it is associated with you, you get the foot in the door, right?
Correct.
But you can get that foot in the door even by your own efforts, not
Correct.
being from a NLU. You will
Correct.
still get that chance. Somebody will see the human in you, a
Yeah.
partner, and say that, okay, let me take a chance on this kid. Okay.
Correct.
It is only after that that the struggle begins. It's
Yeah.
not when you get that opportunity. You
Correct.
will get that opportunity if you're excelling, if you're prepared, if you're confident, if you're able to build that network. But then after that, what you do makes all the difference. So I say that non-NLU students create a hurdle for themselves by always emphasizing on this fact कि यार मैं NLU से नहीं हूँ, मैं NLU से नहीं हूँ. तो नहीं हो तो नहीं हो. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. That's the best
Correct.
thing, right? At the end of the day, you need courage, you need confidence, and you need preparation.
Yeah.
A law firm partner, academic field, any field you go, they are not bothered where you got your degree from, it might create an initial impression, but after that, they have to work with you day in and day out. So you need to get your work delivered. That's all. I've seen many non-NLU grads and grads who are not from great colleges do exceptionally well because maybe that prepared them to work even harder.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, as opposed to victimizing yourself and saying that because I'm not from this place, therefore I will not be successful. Because if you have that mindset, any which ways you'll not be successful. So might as well just try and become successful in that area. And what choice do you have? Ultimately, you have to earn your bread. Think about it from that perspective also. That listen, I don't want to be the greatest. I just want to earn in the beginning so that I can support myself and then grow from strength to strength.
Correct.
And that's what everybody does. And that's something that non-NLU students should understand, even with LLMs, even with higher education. When I conduct these webinars, this question always pops up that, okay, I'm not from an NLU, so will I get an admission? So you are cutting yourself out of the race even before trying. So I said, why don't you try? They don't care, institutions abroad. What they care about is what is written in your SOP, whether you have decent grades and whether you are willing to pursue your higher education. So don't start, censoring your opportunities by yourself. That's the worst thing you can do, especially in your 20s.
Yeah, your identity is not your college. You have to constantly work on your communication skills, your personality, the way you put yourself across out there. And if you people will notice you if you have these basic things like the way you write an email, your attention to detail, your communication skills are very important because that creates an impression which lasts very long.
Exactly.
So you have to work on these small things. It really, college cannot be your identity. You have to move beyond that.
Exactly. And one piece of advice that there is for anybody who's trying to make it as a lawyer, you cannot absolutely ignore communication skills. You have to have really strong
That's
communication.
essential.
So if you are from a non-NLU and you feel that I don't have equal opportunities, start working extra hard on your communication skills, written, spoken,
Correct.
English. English is very important.
Yeah.
Where you put that full stop and comma can make it or break your
Correct.
career. Trust me, that's the amount of attention to detail that you should have. So yes, so those are some of the things that we would like students to consider.
Thank you so much to both of you for this information. Now I'll open, the students can ask questions if any. We'll take, we are already way above time, beyond time. So we'll quickly just take one or two questions. Okay, so Ojas has asked, is it better to work in a PSU than a corporate firm? If you have, yeah. Shreya, if you
I think it's a very personal choice. Depends on the kind of life you want to lead and the kind of work you want to do. So PSUs can also be very rewarding because you're working with an organization. You are becoming expertise in that particular sector, which has a very different career trajectory compared to a law firm where you're more dynamic and you're dealing with many different things on a daily basis. So it's a very it's about the kind of life you want to live. So I think that's why internships are important. You should use your opportunity to intern with different places so that you can make an informed choice.
Thank you so much. Professor Shireen, RRR has asked, does academia provide financial stability?
It depends upon what kind of an academic you are. If you are an ambitious academic, if you are somebody who wants to ace the academic field, I can confidently say that you will earn as much as you can earn in any other field of law as a mid-career professional. But you have to be somebody who is motivated, who does a number of things apart from teaching. So you need to research, publish, make your mark in the industry, and then finance would really not be a problem for you. And it was only earlier, say 10 or 15 years earlier, that you had really these government colleges only in the space, and they did not pay as much. But today, the world is your oyster. You have so many private education institutions in India which are respectable and which really pay well. So I would say yes.
Shreya, Sneha Arora asks whether law firms restrict your social life up to an extent due to long working hours. What is your opinion on that?
So initial years, yes, you have to put in a lot, like many long hours. I don't think your social life gets restricted because your friends are also stuck in the same
Right.
place. So you will make friends with your colleagues, and you sort of start to make your social circle expands drastically because you are working with many new people, etc., etc. But yes, it is long hours, not denying that.
Thank you so much. Vaibhav Bharadwaj is asking, ma'am, please tell what difference you observed at Jindal and Queen Mary University for Shreen.
Okay. So the difference was that by the time I was doing my post graduation, I of course had 5 years of learning at Jindal. So I was better prepared for that LLM degree, and that was something that I actually wanted to do. So it was an academic pursuit. So I was looking forward to it. I was much more interested by the time I was doing my LLM. The difference, I'll tell you, is the exposure that you get as an international student, because your classroom would have students from 50 other countries. So you understand, you develop an international perspective of things, and the kind of challenges that different countries face in the world, and kind of how their legal systems are developed, how do people live in those countries. So the cultural exchange is much more. In terms of your research and academic training, you get to interact with people who are top scholars in their field. So you really understand what are the key issues in those areas, and you develop a very in-depth understanding of those areas. So as opposed to doing generally understanding the basics of subjects which we do in the undergrad, you're really getting into the core materials, critical legal thinking, critical scholarship when it comes to your master in law program. So the people, the culture, the academics, all of that is different, and it expands your mind in a way really that you can't go back ever. So it opens up your mind in ways that that can happen only when you pursue a degree abroad in an international institution. And most importantly, you are much more independent in an LLM degree space as opposed to undergrad. There's a lot of hand holding in the undergrad which we take for granted. In the LLM, you are on your own. So whether it's writing that thesis, whether it's scoring well in your subjects, whether it's getting the material that is essential for your classes, all of that is something that you do as your on your own, and you're expected to because you are a mature student by then. So that was a kind of change that I sort of understood, and also the kind of UK in general is something that they go by the book. So they are really very rule oriented. They value punctuality a lot. You learn time management. So you know that you have to work hard, but after that you have these social meet and greets, which are equally important. And they actually value somebody in that space who works hard, but also shows up for these events. So that is better than only working, because they consider you as somebody who can't manage time, as opposed to the Indian mentality where if a person does not show up for social events, then we say, "Arey kitna kaam karta hai, kitna focused hai," you know. But in UK, it's the other way around. Okay, this person works hard, but this person also knows how to relax, right? So that was a bit of a change in the UK system.
Thank you so much. The session was very insightful, and I hope our students must have learned something from both of you. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and influencing our students. We are
Deepshika, before you
yeah.
close, I just have one thing. I heard, I saw one of the questions where somebody was asking me about my
Yeah.
book. I would like to quickly
Yes.
say that this is the book. It's Guide to LLM Admissions and Scholarships Abroad. and it's available on Amazon. Whenever you think that you would like to refer, this is a shameless plug-in, but I do this because I don't get as many opportunities to tell students that there are these books that exist. And generally, when we go on Amazon or we are looking for books, we are really interested in non-academic stuff, but it's known as Guide to LLM Admissions and Scholarships Abroad. It's available in ebook format as well as hard copy, whatever suits you, and it's something that will really give you an insight into the admission process.
Thank you
Sorry,
so much.
Deepshika, I will
Yeah.
also answer one question.
Yes.
LLM is really not a requirement for law firm jobs. The experience is something that they value more than doing an LLM, because it's with practice that you learn certain things, right? So they really value if you are someone who's been continuously working in the legal field for 5, 6, 7 years. They no, I'm not saying that LLM does not broaden your horizon. It definitely does, but there is no advantage that you get in a law firm while having an LLM. And
Absolutely.
one more thing, one person wrote that of course they are giving CLAT and they are trying to get to the best NLU, and that is how they keep themselves motivated. Our talk was not directed at people who are first of all, who will probably clear CLAT and get to an NLU, to the best NLUs. What we are saying is people who are not able to do it for reasons beyond their control should not give up on their dreams of being a lawyer just because they did not get to a law school. So the idea is not to demotivate you from CLAT. Give it your best shot. But just with sometimes you'll realize it's not in your control, right? So if it doesn't happen, don't give up on being a lawyer at all.
Right. Right. Thank you so much for clearing that up. Yeah, I also saw that comment, but I swiftly moved on. Yeah. So thank you so much, guys, for spending your time
Thank
with
you,
us.
Deepshika. You've
Thank
been
you
very
so much.
kind host.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deepshika.
I hope the students must have learned something. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank
So
you.
we'll end the session here. And okay, you can leave if you want to. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you to the attendees as well. And
Thank you.
take care and stay safe, all of you. Thank
Yes,
you.
and we are on LinkedIn. If you any of you want to chat with us, need any help, any clarification, do reach out to us.
Yes, ditto to what Shreya said. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye.